Okay, okay. So you fairly recently published your fourth annual Direction of Technology report, and I think you say it's slightly different structure from previous ones. So perhaps you can tell us what is different, and
Sure.
also, I guess, sort of part two of the opening question. It seems as if AI and cybersecurity are the sort of two topics that continue to dominate, or beginning to dominate in the case of AI, maybe the IT landscape. So yeah, just give us a bit more info, please.
Certainly. Yeah. So we're really pleased to be in the fourth year. It's incredible how quickly time flies of the Direction of Technology report. And there are a number of things this year that really helped us raise the bar, if you will, in terms of the report itself, the insights it delivers. First and foremost is just the breadth of reach for the report itself. It reaches over, it has surveyed over 1,400 reseller partners around the globe across 40 countries. So it is a really healthy, representative sample in terms of stakeholders across the channel ecosystem. And that's really helped us to be able to dive into some of the insights and the details in ways that we really haven't before. And it's remarkable when you think about the fact that when we launched the report 4 years ago, we were pleased with a little over 200 responses globally. So it really has taken off. The result of that this year is a truly enhanced format, both in terms of what we present from an external basis, as well as how we demonstrate and enable our coworkers internally to tell some of these stories to the outside. So when you visit the report, some of the things you're going to notice is a lot more interactive than it's ever been. It's very modular. It is organized by insight, by trend, by topic. So it's very easy and simple to click through and get into whatever subject matter is particularly of interest to whoever happens to be viewing the report. There are clickable charts and icons, side-by-side comparisons. And one of the things that's really important to us is thinking about the report as a resource for the audiences that are viewing it. So everything is very not only easy to browse, but easy to use. You can download any of the charts or other visuals to insert into your own presentations with the correct citations are included right there. So it's very easy to leverage as a resource. So that's certainly a benefit. And then internally, we've done a number of things to try and change the way that our coworkers are able to leverage the report. In particular, we launched an AI agent this year called Dottie, which has been a really great opportunity. Coworkers can leverage the tool, go in, ask it any kinds of questions, and it will go through, you know, hundreds, thousands of lines of data and input and responses. It can drill down by country, by region, by whatever vertical. So it's truly a game changer in terms of the way that we're able to deliver that content. And then, you asked about AI and security being sort of top themes, and they certainly are this year. And I'm sure that comes as no surprise to anyone. I think probably the way to maybe think about it in terms of the insights from the report is really about specialization. That is what has sort of led the charge, whether it's AI, whether it's cybersecurity. It's making sure partners have been very clear. The ones that have looked at where the growth opportunities lie, the ones that have looked at where they're optimistic about the future. It's been about being able to specialize and deliver the outcomes, not just the individual piece parts or point products, if you will, but rather what are the outcomes that their end customers are trying to achieve and how do they figure out how to deliver against those.
Okay, and in terms of there are loads of findings I know, but picking up on some of them,
Mhm.
I think service-led business models, the suggestion is they're fueling the success in the age of
Mhm.
AI.
Mhm.
And I suppose adding to that point, the majority, I think, was at 75% or so of your people said that AI is essential for the future. So, as you say, maybe not surprised, but just tell us, how important AI would seem to be uh,
Yeah.
in the report.
It's really fascinating. When you look at the surface level, the 75% of reseller respondents saying that AI is becoming an important part of their portfolios, certainly you would expect that. But when we come back to this notion of specialization and how you drive the outcomes and how the partners drive outcomes that their end customers are looking for, that takes some really unique expertise. And so supporting that storyline is that more than 80% of the respondents are already providing not just AI solutions, but consulting and professional services around this. They're either providing it now or are planning to add that in the future, particularly looking at high adoption among verticals like professional services firms, no surprise there, hybrid organizations, organizations that are really looking at how do services add value and add insight and direction for their end customers as they're looking to navigate this landscape and ultimately capitalize on opportunity. Um, when you think about the tailored AI solutions, some of the ones that really bubbled to the top are things like AI infrastructure, data management, AI powered cybersecurity. That's a big piece. So if you think about the fact that cybersecurity and AI bubbled to the top, it makes utter sense that they work hand in hand in terms of how AI can augment cybersecurity, but also the needs on the cybersecurity perspective of staying ahead of some of the threat vectors that might be around AI, and those came through very clearly around the results of the study. Um, when we think about MSPs, for example, more than 79% of the MSPs and 88.5% of systems integrators are already offering AI infrastructure and cloud solutions. At the same time, if you look more traditionally at the VAR community, over 75% of them and more than 80% of hybrid partners are investing in AI-powered cybersecurity. So this is not a phenomenon that has been restricted or unique to a given vertical. It's happening across segments, and it truly is pervasive and something that every partner is having to navigate.
Okay, and I think the report sort of goes on to suggest that organizations need to sort of concentrate on making sure they built resilience in their sort of core technologies, but also lean into these next generation technologies. So, is that, I mean, anecdotally, or if it's in the report, is that an easy sort of balancing act, or are companies maybe struggling to equally well cope with both of those priorities?
I think it's the pressing reality that they're facing. It truly has been those two components, the resilience and the agility. Ultimately, in their core offerings, they need to have the resilience in order to have that strong foundation of infrastructure and cybersecurity. Those are, to put it in simple terms, prerequisites, table stakes in order to be able to participate. But at the same time, it's looking at not just how to exist in the ecosystem, but how to ultimately grow. And the partners that have demonstrated the most optimism around growth prospects are the ones that are leaning into those high growth technologies, AI analytics, automation, leveraging the ways to use the data at their fingertips to work smarter and to deliver smarter outcomes for their partners. Um, Interestingly enough, for AI powered cybersecurity and AI driven automation, those were big standouts in terms of growth drivers looking ahead, with nearly 60% and just about 55% of partners respectively citing them as having the most significant industry impact. So that, I mean, you're talking about majorities of partners looking at those two segments, AI powered cybersecurity and AI driven automation, as critical to where the next phases of growth are going to be.
Okay, and in terms of the AI, which obviously is the big sort of focus,
Sure.
the report says, perhaps repeating ourselves slightly, but it's the foundation for success. But I'm just wondering, is that providing AI to customers, um, and or embracing AI, within the channel to help better deliver? What's going on, if you like? Is it both, or one or the other?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant sort of yes and kind of scenario. Um, the expectation certainly is that they're able to provide the AI-driven solutions, the things I mentioned around AI-powered cybersecurity or AI-driven automation. Certainly, those are critical. But what's also expected is that AI is a component of the way that they serve their customers. Um, it's I was just at an event in Latin America a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that was being discussed on stage that was so directly linked to this report was the idea that AI is not the kind of technology or solution that a customer walks into a store, goes to a website and says, I'll have one AI, please. But rather, AI gets integrated into everything, every part of the delivery chain, experience, solutions, outcomes, etc. And one of the things that's also interesting is how this happens, there is increasing pressure, increasing emphasis on delivering real world business value. In other words, finding, as I was mentioning before, those outcomes that partners in customers are looking for. Some of the challenges that their customers are facing are incredibly heightened expectations. 45% of respondents of the reseller partners said that their growing customer expectations, it's the biggest challenge they're trying to keep up with when you think about the role of AI. But not far behind that, just over 43% cited customer skepticism. Not really sure where that, again, the real world value lies. And then, probably also not surprising, around 43% cited skills gaps. There is a significant need for upskilling around these new high growth technologies with AI at the core. And I think it's a logical connection then to look at that need and think about the impact that that has on the demand for things like services, for the models changing in terms of how they look at how they look at talent within their organizations and upskilling and all of the work that goes in, because it truly is a transformation that leaves no stone unturned. It permeates all the organization and every level of that experience and every level of the stack.
Okay, and maybe just coming on to the big issue, which continues to be cybersecurity. And I guess our good friend AI has a role to play there, both on the good side and the bad side. But would I be right in saying that no one's yet sort of nailed cybersecurity? It's a sort of rapidly developing and still potentially confusing issue for whether it's the channel or it's very much so for their customers. Just your thoughts, I suppose, as to where we are with cybersecurity.
Certainly. I mean, cybersecurity has been a pervasive topic for some time now. And the channel is no different. If you think about the way the respondents looked at the role of cybersecurity, they were very clear in their survey responses that it is a fundamental requirement. About 80% of partners said that they're already offering at least one cybersecurity solution, and that's across verticals, across customer types, segments, geographies, etc. But kind of to the point that you're making, and it stands to reason if you just pay attention to any of the headlines, whether it's across cybersecurity, um, specific news publications, or the broader global business media, there's stories every day about how the threat landscape's changing. And our partners were very clear in the survey that cybersecurity remains a battleground. There are threats that are evolving at paces that grow every day. It creates confusion, challenges for organizations. And so, among the things that particularly stood out from the Direction of Technology report were things like emerging threats, things like AI-driven attacks and ransomware. About 50%, just shy of 50% of partners cited that as a major issue. Data breaches, around 42% looking at that as a major issue, but then also the sort of the knock-on things. I mentioned the skills gaps and expertise limitations, integration complexity with existing systems, right? You've got these existing legacy systems and a need to continually keep them up to date, um, keep them up to speed in terms of where the threat landscape is, where the challenges exist, where the ways are to overcome those challenges, and then fundamentally customer confusion or unrealistic expectations. Uh, it's sort of a known adage that if you haven't experienced a cybersecurity attack yet, it's a matter of time. And I think that's one of the things that was very clear in the responses, and our partners, or the partners that responded to the survey, were clear that their end customers have very, very significant expectations on that front. And so it is very clear from the report there is a dependency, not just that cybersecurity is in place, but there are integrated security architectures. I mentioned before the measurable business impacts and the demand for how can partners, and specifically how can their end customers, do the best job possible of increasingly aligning cybersecurity across things like cloud, AI, analytics, and making sure they are just as effective as possible.
Okay, and you mentioned earlier on that specialization is important, and I think the report sort of puts it quite nicely, specialization beats scale. So I don't know if you can unpick that or expand on that, because clearly there are companies that love to acquire and grow bigger and bigger, whether they do that as specialists or not. But just I suppose, yeah, how you work out how much to specialize and how much to scale up, and yeah, if you
Yeah.
get my drift, just kind of unpick that sort of landscape if you can.
It's a really great question. I think when you think about the topics that we've covered so far, when you look at cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, all of the high growth technologies that are driving partner optimism, growth prospects, they aren't simple. They are incredibly nuanced and complex. And to that point, when you think about the demand for specialization, again, coming back to instead of this legacy environment where partners and their end customers are looking for point solutions, there is an increasing expectation demand for expertise and trust. So if you look at industry expertise and consultation, which is among the factors that we asked partners about in the survey of what's valued, that's the number one factor that partners, that resellers, I should say, value out of their partners, followed by exceptional customer service. They need that expertise and that trust and consultative counsel in order to pursue, unlock, uncover the business opportunities for themselves, as well as to deliver the actual business outcomes that their end customers are expecting. Some of the things in terms of the differentiation through specialization that come out very clearly in the report. Some of the top three include deep vertical solutions, so specific, that comes back to the specific industry pain points, as well as then secondarily building trust through high touch service and advisory models, helping be the strategic guide, strategic partner, thought partner on how to complete those journeys that ultimately lead to the business outcomes that their end customers are expecting. And then ultimately, service excellence. There's the expectations for delivery excellence are higher than ever. And that came through very clearly in the report as critical for partners in terms of how they can protect their margins and remain competitive, because that's the other factor, of course, is that the market is only becoming more competitive every day.
Okay, and maybe related to that last point you made, the report suggests that organizations need to rebuild operating models for this AI era. So is that as you say, being service led, is that the particular thing, or are we talking about other things as well? Just yeah, what's going on there?
I think the answer to that is sort of all of the above, if you will. AI is transforming, as we know, everything about how work gets done. It's reshaping things like company culture, roles, workflows, leadership expectation. So this is a shift that is going well beyond certainly the critical piece being the skill gap, but much to a broader transformation around sort of this AI-enabled future of work, which does necessitate a reevaluation of those operating models. Solving challenges, these are some of the three that came out most clearly in terms of the things that businesses are trying to solve. Talent recruitment and retention. That was listed by more than a third of respondents already, not down the road, but already as a challenge that they're facing when they think about scaling IT operations. Similarly, workforce scalability and skills gaps. We talked about the skills gap, but how do you get enough, bandwidth, if you will, in order to deliver on these expectations? 41% cited that as a significant challenge for scaling services. And then ultimately, some of the hurdles that come with implementing AI and other sort of advanced technologies like this, like lack of expertise, which is 43%, integration issues, which is just below 43%, or customer skepticism, so helping them come along on the journey. And so what that means is that partners, as they're navigating this landscape, is that these businesses have to become more progressive, more predictable, or more predictive, I should say, and proactive in how they leverage their own partnerships and rethink how sort of humans and AI agents collaborate. Things like redesigning workflows to integrate AI in a seamless way, or reallocating human capital that's been freed up by automation. So how do you take advantage of the efficiency gains that you're going to get through this automation. Adapting leadership models, how you lead in an environment like this when you have sort of this hybrid human and AI team execution, and then ultimately ensuring that technology adoption is not just technology for technology's sake, but that it's meaningful and sustainable. And so that's a big thing that every business is looking at. And it, I think this came out of the DoT this year, and I think that this is the very beginning of just a dialogue that's going to take a lot of different twists and turns, and there's going to be a lot of conversation around what do these models look like going forward. It's going to be really fascinating.
Okay, and in terms of the sort of business climate, I don't know, does the report sort of ask folks about that? Because I guess, I mean, I don't want to be too gloomy, but an economist, no two economists ever agree, do they? But
Yeah.
the sort of trends seem to be quite tough for business at the moment. We've then got sort of geopolitics. So is growth still possible for the channel given the sort of tough trading conditions? What did you find in the report?
It was that's a fascinating topic to evaluate. And again, I think one of the things that's so great about having such a deep sample size this year is we were able to get into some really interesting insights as it relates to some of those macro level trends. And one of the things that we did is we asked technology resellers through the survey about specifically where they see growth and what they are, how optimistic they are about their future prospects, and particularly following some of the announcements around, trade challenges with tariffs and things like that. You'll find if you go through the report, there are two new indices. There's a net growth index and a net optimism index that we did on a region by region basis to normalize and see sort of with a baseline of 100, how optimistic or perhaps pessimistic are the various regions or what drives optimism or growth around certain topics. And, you know, the reality is, and this is why we talk about specialization trumping scale, is that there are pockets, certainly, that make it very clear when you look at the growth and optimism. They make it very clear that growth is still possible despite some of those economic and business challenges. But the key is having the strategic clarity and the operational agility that we mentioned before in order to seek out, uncover where those opportunities exist, as well as then subsequently how do you capitalize on them. So, there could be, as you mentioned, a host of macroeconomic pressures, things like inflation, increased competition, talent shortages, tariffs, et cetera. They're not, they're very, very prevalent. And so we've spent quite a bit of time in the report looking at, okay, well then where the growth and the optimism prospects lie, what are the drivers behind that? And there are really four key drivers for the growth component, particularly building resilience in core infrastructure and cybersecurity, which we've talked about, investing in those high growth technologies, the AI, the analytics, the automation, differentiating through specialization. That's how you sort of bring everything together. How is it possible to drive the outcomes that partners or that their end customers are looking for, solving specific industry problems, and then, as we mentioned before, redesigning those operating models, thinking about how do we work differently. At the end of the day, the report made it very clear that the market or our respondents believe that the market is going to be rewarding companies that are combining the strategic foresight and the decisive action and a path forward that will, provide the growth they're seeking and fuel that sort of optimism that they're demonstrating, regardless of the uncertain times. It's just about figuring out where to go, and that's what makes the channel interesting. Is the channel is a place that has historically shown its resilience, shown its ability to take businesses and adapt to where the opportunity is, and so I think that's come through very clearly in the report.
Yeah, and maybe out of that, as I say, if I remember correctly, the sort of the two things that are particularly focused on in terms of the companies they're going to be defined as the winners are being service led, which I know you've obviously emphasized, and then the sort of being future ready, which is, I guess, around the AI picture.
Mhm.
Are those the two key pillars out of everything, or anything else that is important for those companies that are going to succeed?
I think there's a really good summary of what the report is getting at. It's that high growth performers are going to be distinguished not by necessarily what they sell, but how they operate. If the organizations that are leading with services, things like consulting, the managed services we talked about, and ultimately delivering those custom IT solutions, and then pair them with those, we use the term future ready, those high growth capabilities like AI, analytics. Those are the ones that have been very clear in the report, expect to be or are currently outperforming their peers. A good example, if we look at ISVs, independent software vendors, and then professional services firms, those two segments showed the highest net growth index scores of 120 and 110. So if you think of 100 being that baseline, those are significant sort of upticks. And that kind of tells you, if you look at the segments they're looking at, like services firms, of course, they're finding the right place to capitalize on that opportunity, the growth opportunity, I should say, that exists in front of them. Similarly, when you talk about the future ready piece, the technologies themselves that we talked about before, the physical technology is not necessarily a differentiator anymore. That's the baseline requirement. And so the thing that truly takes them to the next level, helps them to uh, not only be optimistic about the future, but capitalize on growth potential, are the businesses that are investing in everything that goes with it. The talent we talked about, importantly, strategic partnerships. I think one of the things that has been so clear and is so fascinating to watch, if you go back and look at the first, second, third, and now fourth annual Direction of Technology reports, partnerships continue to stand out as sort of the killer app, if you will, at accelerating growth and capitalizing on opportunity. And again, that's where the channel does so well. So partnership stood out certainly in this one again. And then, as we talked about before, the companies that are able to um, consider how they evolve their operating models and ultimately help their customers evolve their models going forward. So, yeah, I think to your point, I think that's exactly right, that these businesses that are going to capitalize on the most growth are absolutely service led. We talked about the importance of them delivering the specialization that's going to be expected. And then certainly, that is what makes the future ready piece of the conversation relevant rather than just looking at the advanced technology piece of it in a silo.
Yeah, maybe before we finish, and perhaps confirming the fact that AI is the number one topic. I know yourselves, you fairly recently launched the practice builder methodologies, even for destination AI. So
Right.
perhaps tell us a little bit more, I suppose, about what it is and the benefits. Why you've introduced it.
I think our practice builder methodology, in destination AI is such a good example. Are shining lights in terms of that, not just the need for specialization, but delivering on the requirements for that. So at the end of the day, the best way to think about Practice Builder, it's a methodology, it's a program that is extremely tailored to enable technology reseller partners to develop their own capabilities, their own practices, and then be able to execute on a strategic plan that we work with them to create. So they've got a plan of action on how they want to establish a viable business practice. In the case of Destination AI, the destination or the artificial intelligence business practice. You can think about it through the lens of, with Destination AI, for example, there's a really detailed matrix that our experts take partners through in terms of figuring out on the sort of journey toward this ever progressing destination AI, where they exist currently on the continuum, where their opportunities lie, and then subsequently from there being able to work with them on how do we help you get there? What are the tools and resources that you need that we can provide? What are certainly the technologies within the AI stack that you need? And we talked before about the importance of being able to integrate that across other technologies like cybersecurity. And so that readiness assessment is sort of the start line, or the beginning of the roadmap, if you will, on how to help partners identify what their gaps are, what their capabilities are that they need in order to achieve the goals that they have, And then certainly, as I mentioned previously, what are the ways that TD SYNNEX can help enable them through, enablement resources, vendor engagement, services, whatever the case may be, so that they can find where their greatest opportunities lie, understand what the opportunities are, certainly for their end customers, and then deliver on those demands for their end customers going forward.
Okay, and I was going to finally ask, and what you've just explained, I guess, is a great example of it. But I was going to say, how do you define TD SYNNEX's role within, it's a rapidly moving IT landscape that we've been
Mhm.
discussing, and clearly you've explained about that AI solution there. But just more generally, what is it do you think that you bring to the party for your channel partners in, and I say, what's potentially a confusing, complex, fast-moving, landscape? How do you help them not just cope with that, but thrive, if you like?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think uh, our position, TD SYNNEX's position at the center of sort of the technology ecosystem landscape, whatever you want to call it, is truly unique, and it's what gives us the privilege and authority of being able to publish a report like the direction of technology, which is we sit at the middle and we understand through um, thousands of vendor partners on the vendor side, the technology producer side, if you will, and hundreds of thousands of reseller partners on that side of the continuum. We understand what the needs and demands are on the downstream side, but also what the opportunities and new technologies are on the vendor side. And I think what truly sets TD SYNNEX apart is not just that understanding, but what we do about it. Um, at the end of the day, certainly we bring, millions and millions of dollars in technology to market for our partners every day. But it's more than that. It's about the expertise, it's about the enablement, it's about the financial solutions behind the scenes to help give reseller partners the flexibility in order to deliver the solutions that they need. It's the competencies we help deliver. It is the experiences around cybersecurity. A lot of businesses talk about customer centricity, and we talk about it through the lens of partner first. At the end of the day, we are a group of individuals, a group of human beings, 23,000 around the globe, helping other human beings deliver technology outcomes. That is what it comes down to. And I think it's the people and the expertise and the specialization backed by all of the various tools and enablement that I mentioned, not just the technologies, but the enablement resources, the financial wherewithal, and competency builder that truly sets us apart. And it is what makes developing this report such a great privilege and an opportunity. And it's why you haven't seen a report like this on a global scale prior to the direction of technology launching, because it's a unique space to be, and it's something that we take a lot of pride in.
Okay, I mean, it's been so great to chat, and thank you so much for giving me the time and sharing so many great insights from the report and your sort of experience of the channel. And yeah, thank you so much again for your time. It's been great to chat. Thank you, Bobby.
Yeah, likewise. Cheers. I really appreciate it, Philip.